In today's episode, we're going to be hearing from a very special guest who has provided some disturbing pictures of things going on their property. But before we get into today's stories, be sure to go ahead and smack that like and subscribe button for stories just like these. Let's go. You can call me Carlos, and long story short, I've been having a series of strange and unexplainable events going on all over my property. Let me give you a little bit of backstory. I acquired this piece of land back in 2017, the springtime to be exact, spanning over 100 acres. It's thick with dense woods on all sides, a long driveway, very private, and it's a hidden gem of property right in the middle of the woods in rural New York. Most of my experiences have been at night. My property is close to the Black River Wild Forest. My property is also about a mile from the closest house. Since I moved in, I've had strange things happening all around the property. I've had things moved, missing items, strange noises I can't explain, livestock and animals missing, and other bizarre phenomenon. I'm not sure what to make of it myself, but I thought maybe you could help me figure it all out. It all began one evening when I started hearing strange noises coming from the north end of the property line. Now, to preface, this is the majority of where all the strange happenings occur. This includes the pictures and things I'm going to be showing you have all been around this section of the property. I'm not exactly sure why, but it certainly gives me the creeps. Now, I didn't start having experiences and sightings right off the bat. Sure, I got the creeps a couple of times while going out on my property at night or sitting on the porch and smoking out of my tobacco pipe, but it wasn't more towards June where things really began to escalate. One night, in the summer, I was up late reading a book outside of my porch. I was enjoying the serene beauty of the night around me. This is when I began to hear this machine sound. It sounded so out of place and like it was coming from inside the forest. It reminded me of construction equipment. Loud, noisy, and grinding. I mean, I would be lying if I said I wasn't completely freaked out by hearing this, considering I am surrounded by thick, dense woods all around, with no sign of machinery anywhere. So as you can imagine, I was pretty confused upon hearing this noise. So I began to walk out that direction to see if maybe there was possibly some machinery out there or possibly some construction and I just didn't happen to see it. As I began walking towards the north section of my property, where the noises were coming from deeper in the woods, I began to see some strange lights and shapes going on in the sky. Upon coming to my small cabin where I hold a lot of my tools, I snapped this picture. As you can see, it clearly details a UFO craft of some kind. I was pretty much crapping my pants when I took the picture because of just how real this is. And keep in mind that before this, I never gave two craps about UFOs or the supernatural in any way. These two pictures that I've showed you, I took over the course of 3 different days. Now, I have some other ones that I take, but they didn't turn out quite as good. These 2 are by far the best. And these strange noises kept happening just about every single night after about 11 p.m. at night. And they would go on and off till roughly 2 or 3 in the morning. Very strange. I would also see random blue and red lights off in the distance in the woods. Again, no way to really explain it. During this 3 days, I was also able to capture this strange image of what I call green vapor. I'm not quite sure what it was, but I would see these strange lights all around the forest, all around my house, up in the sky and even ground level. It could be UFO, it could be alien, I'm not 100% sure, so I figured you were the better expert at this than I am. Now, it was about this same time that I already had a bunch of trail cams set up because before all of this was happening, I was having issues with animals getting into my trash. What I initially thought were raccoons turned out to be something entirely different. Now, I know you might find this hard to believe, but I actually captured these two images of what appears to be a dog canine creature of some kind on my trail cam. I want to just take a second to restate here that I have not shown these images to anybody else for fear of ridicule or worse, and so I figured they'd be safer in your hands, and at least if you think they're authentic, you could show them to your audience. I really have no idea how to explain them like the other strange lights, but ever since those lights began to appear and the strange noises, these two followed right in their footsteps. I need to backtrack for just a quick second and let you know that during this time, I had about 8 or 9 feral cats that were coming to my house in the evening and nighttime, and I would feed them. Probably a bad idea in hindsight, right? Well, I kind of have a soft spot for cats. Always had, since growing up we had at least 2 or 3, and I'm very fond of them. Well, as soon as these weird lights and sounds start showing up and these canine creatures, next thing you know, over the course of the next 4 to 5 days, there is not a single cat to be found. In fact, I would leave food out at night, and in the morning, it would be untouched. Whereas before, it would be all gobbled up before 1 in the morning. And these cats never hid their presence. They weren't shy at all. They would be meowing at my back door, wanting my attention, wanting food. Very friendly, loving cats. And so the fact they disappeared is a little alarming. Near the east side of the property, I also caught this strange apparition or light, whatever you want to call it. It's just this dark, red-black mass. This too was within a week of all the other sightings and was taken on the trail cam on the far east side. Now, it gets a little more hairier, so to speak, because along this eastern side, I have a chainlink fence going for maybe about 50 feet on a portion of the forest. I'm not exactly sure why it was built here, but it was here before I had acquired the property. Now, I was able to take this picture as well, which details some sort of creature of some sort. I believe it to actually be one of these wolf creatures that I had caught on camera a couple different times. They did not seem to be too happy that I was taking pictures of them with my trail cam. In fact, I had about 8 in total all around the property from the north to the south, east to the west, and all but 2 were taken down and I was never able to find them again. The 2 that I had retained, however, had these images on them of whatever these creatures were. I also understand that as I'm writing this to you, I probably sound a lot more calm and collective, but let me reassure you that I'm literally freaking out and petrified out of my mind. Within the coming week's time, these beings, the lights, the sounds, all became what I would describe as much more aggressive, moving closer and closer towards my house. In fact, within the coming weeks, I don't even think a month had passed by, and I started to see these strange markings all over my house. They weren't typical claw marks. They were as if something with large claws had pressed down and input their print onto the wall of the house. I have this picture here that I took, and you see it looks very strange. I don't know how to describe it, but these are literally all over the siding of the house. And this continued on and on for, I want to say, 6 to 8 weeks. And just as soon as all of this erupted and started up, it suddenly died by about mid-fall. Well, lucky for I was able to move out right around mid-November before Thanksgiving. The circumstances in which were very unfortunate, considering I had a very sickly family member in which I had to tend to, so that required me essentially giving up the property and moving in full-time with this family member. Praise God that this family member made it through their treatment and struggles and survived, and they are still happily alive today. But as far as that property in rural New York, I want nothing to do with it, nor do I ever want to be near it again. It scared me, it gave me the creeps, and there's nothing positive about that place. I've heard stories about that area being cursed and all sorts of other paranormal things going on. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But I feel like the pictures I've provided to you speak the truth and hold far more value than words could ever. one thing's for sure, there's definitely something very strange happening around that entire area. Story 2. I've currently been a hiking and camping guide located in Missouri. I've been doing this for roughly 10 or 11 years now. See, I grew up hiking and camping with my family. It's always been one of my favorite things to do by far. I started leading groups of people on camping and hiking trips about 5 years ago. I love doing it. I feel that I'm really good at it. And I've never had any problems with any of the people I've taken on a trip. But there was one time when I was leading a group of 4 men on a camping trip in the Ozarks. Something happened I still cannot explain. We were all sitting around the campfire one night having some drinks when all of a sudden we heard what sounded like loud screeching noises coming from the woodline. It was like something was being slaughtered. We got up to see what it was, and we could see this being or animal or creature standing there in the clearing. Now, this is my best description. It was about 7 feet tall, covered in hair, thick, woolly, curly hair from head to toe. Its head reminded me of a cross between a deer, a ram, and a wolf. It was bizarre looking and had deep black reddish eyes. It had horns that were very similar to that of a ram's. They were jet black and came up to the top of its head and curled around. It was standing there observing us, and it kept making this strange clicking noise with its mouth. We were all shocked and terrified. We didn't know what to do. Then it began to make this low growling noise and began to move around the tree line closer to us while still staying concealed. We stood close by the campfire, grabbing and holding whatever weapons we had with us, afraid that things were about to get very bloody very quick. The other guys had a hatchet, I had a pretty big army knife, although in reality, I knew with this thing's size, our weapons would be like attacking it with butter knives. Pretty much nothing. We stood there, ready to meet our end, accepting. But this thing just disappeared into the woods. The forest around us stayed completely silent, and you could just feel the tension in the air. We stood there in shock and panic, not knowing what to do. And probably 30 to 40 minutes had passed before I feel like we could finally move again and pack up right then and there and leave. We tried to go to sleep that night once we got a few miles away, but it didn't work. So we ended up sleeping, at least some of us, while the other was on watch. Even now, as I recall this story, I could still hear that thing, making those clicking noises and making those strange noises in the woods. I've never really told this story because, well, number one, who's gonna believe me? And of course, number two, it's not really a long or interesting story. It's just something that I have to live with. I know that many people think that this creature might be something of folklore or legend that I'm describing, but I'm here to tell you that what I saw was real as me telling you this story. A flesh and blood creature or animal of some kind. Although I don't know what it was or how to best describe it, but all I know is I don't ever want to see it again. In fact, there's still many nights I have nightmares about what I saw. Anyway, thank you so much for your time.